127. Always 127. The warehouse psychologist said it was textbook OCD. The way she tapped her pen exactly 127 times before starting inventory. How she arranged supplies in groups of 127. How she'd recount entire pallets if interrupted before reaching that number. But Private Davis noticed something else. When helicopters flew overhead, she'd count their rotor blades, always stopping at 127 rotations. When rain hit the warehouse roof, she'd track droplets, always losing interest after 127. It wasn't compulsion. It was commemoration. The beautiful supply clerk with honey blonde hair and haunting green eyes wasn't battling mental illness. She was carrying something far heavier. The revelation came during a routine psychological evaluation. The doctor asked about her obsession with the number. Her response made him close his notebook and leave the room immediately. Because she didn't say it was her lucky number. She said it was her body count. And the way she said it, matter of fact, almost bored, made it clear she wasn't lying. Within an hour, the warehouse was surrounded by vehicles with government plates, and Madison Harper was no longer counting supplies. She was counting the days until they found her. Before we dive deeper, where are you watching from? Drop your location below. I'm curious if Madison's story reaches as far as her missions once did. And if you've ever known someone whose quirks hid darker truths, hit subscribe. Madison Harper had arrived at Fort Garrison 18 months ago with impeccable credentials and a smile that lit up the warehouse. At 29, her delicate features and fashion model presence seemed wasted on military logistics. Honey blonde hair, always perfectly styled, emerald green eyes that sparkled, porcelain skin that somehow stayed flawless despite warehouse dust. The other workers noticed her immediately, not just for her beauty, but for her peculiar habits. Everything counted multiple times. Boxes arranged in specific patterns. Her desk organized with precision that exceeded military standards. They whispered about her OCD, some with sympathy, others with annoyance when her rituals slowed operations. Davis watched more carefully. There was something about how she moved. Too smooth. Too aware. When forklifts backed up, she stepped aside before the warning beep. The kind of spatial awareness that came from years of training, not counting boxes. Her counting ritual was the most obvious quirk. That pen tapping, exactly 127 times every morning. The warehouse psychologist, Dr. Brennan, had documented it all. Classic obsessive-compulsive behavior, he'd written. Madison had smiled at his suggestion of therapy, thanked him, and continued exactly as before. Because the number wasn't random. Each tap was a name, a face, a mission completed in places the Army pretended didn't exist. The morning everything changed started like any other. Madison arrived at 0600, performed her ritual, began her counts. Davis was unloading shipments when he noticed her watching helicopters again. 3 Blackhawks passing overhead. Madison's lips moved, counting rotor rotations. At exactly 127, she blinked and returned to inventory. The psychological evaluation was routine, annual requirement, especially for those displaying potential mental health concerns. Brennan hoped to help her manage what he believed was treatable. The session started normally. Questions about her background, her compulsions. Then he asked about 127. Was it meaningful? Could she choose a different number? Madison's composure cracked. Just for a second. Something cold flickered in those green eyes. She leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper. The number was a count. A tally. The exact number of confirmed kills attributed to an operative who officially didn't exist. Someone who'd spent 12 years eliminating threats in places America couldn't officially operate. Brennan tried processing this as delusion. But the way she recited details, dates, locations, methods, with the same precision she used for supplies made his blood freeze. She wasn't confessing or bragging, simply stating facts. The evaluation ended abruptly. Within 10 minutes, Brennan was on secure phones to people whose names he'd never learned. By the time Madison finished afternoon inventory, Fort Garrison was surrounded by unmarked vehicles. She saw them coming, of course. When men in suits entered instead of soldiers, Madison simply set down her clipboard. Her counts for the day, exactly 127 pallets. She'd planned it that way. Special Agent Crawford led the extraction team. He'd read her reel file during flight. The woman standing among boxes was one of the most lethal operators the agency had produced. Hiding in plain sight, counting supplies like meditation. Madison's transformation was subtle but complete. The pleasant clerk demeanor evaporated, replaced by someone who'd traveled with death as companion. She didn't resist, simply nodded when Crawford showed credentials. But first, one request: complete her final inventory. Crawford almost refused, but something in her eyes reconsidered. This woman had given 12 years to operations that haunted her. If she wanted 10 minutes to count boxes, she'd earned it. Madison walked through the warehouse one last time, not counting supplies now, but saying goodbye to the only peace she'd known. Each shelf had been sanctuary, each aligned box of victory against chaos in her mind. At her desk, she pulled out a single sheet, her final inventory report. But instead of supply counts, 127 names, 127 cities, 127 dates. The real inventory she'd carried. She folded it carefully, handed it to Crawford. The warehouse staff watched in silence as their quiet coworker was escorted out by federal agents. Madison paused at the door, turning back. These people who'd shown kindness, accepted her quirks, given her 18 months of almost feeling human. Davis would swear she smiled at him. Not the customer service smile worn like armor, but something genuine and sad. Then she was gone, disappearing into a black SUV. Months later, Davis found something she'd left behind. A notebook hidden beneath drawer lining. Inside were sketches, faces, 127 of them, drawn with photographic precision. The notebook ended with a single line: "You never forget any of them. That's why I count. To make sure I remember exactly how many ghosts follow me. 127. Always 127. Until there's 128. Madison hadn't been hiding from her past. She'd been hiding from her future, from the call that would make her count rise. Somewhere out there, the woman who'd taught him that repetition could be remembrance was adding new tallies to her list. I know stories like Madison's seem impossible, but how many people do we dismiss daily? The quiet ones with strange habits, whose behaviors we label without understanding the weight they carry. Madison counted supplies because counting bodies had nearly broken her. Each repetition was prayer, penance, promise to remember. If her story moved you, if it made you think differently about that coworker with strange habits, please hit subscribe. Not for me, but for them. For all the Madison Harpers hiding in plain sight, carrying counts we can't imagine. For every soldier who came home with tallies they'll never share. Your subscription helps these stories reach those who need them most. Someone struggling with their own ghosts. Someone whose repetitions are remembrance. Someone who needs to know they're not alone in counting the uncountable. Subscribe now. Help me tell stories of those who counted so we could sleep safely. Because Madison was right, you never forget any of them. But by sharing their stories, we can help carry the weight together. Sometimes 127 isn't just a number. Sometimes it's a lifetime of service compressed into 3 digits. Sometimes it's all that stands between madness and memory.